All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alvin Ulrich, here with Bob Rose, who is feeling a little under the weather after his trip to Carolina. How are you doing otherwise, Bob? I know you're trying to get over the cold or the flu or whatever, or the plague, whatever it is you've got, but how are you doing otherwise?
Other than the health issues, Alan, I'm doing all right. Let's put it this way: I'm doing better than Sean Payton, Dennis Allen, or Derek Carr is on this Tuesday evening.
I tell you what, I know a lot of fans enjoy the fact that Peyton is getting humbled for the fact that he left the Saints, but um, that was a hell of a beatdown. It was the second highest scoring in NFL history, only to be topped by, I think it was a 1941 or 43 championship game between the Bears and the Redskins, which was a 73 to nothing game. So that's unbelievable. I still can't wrap my head around that. They're not that bad, but it's obvious they quit on him.
Mhm.
Um, you don't give up 10 touchdowns without quitting. You know,
Yeah,
um, and I think that Peyton is just going to blow up that entire roster, and in a couple of years, practically no one left on that team. No one on that team right now will be on this team. It'll be all his players, and that was a gut check for him.
I see that. I see that direction trending too. It's easy to see because we know Sean Payton pretty well. But I'll tell you this: how much would you hate to be a defensive player in that facility this week? But we know how hard Sean Payton was on defensive coaches. Just imagine. I can't imagine what it's like. Because Sean oversaw some historically bad defenses, but even
Mm-hmm.
when they were hovering around average, he was still screaming at defensive coordinators, defensive coaches, defensive players, week in and week out. So I can't even imagine what it's like in that Denver facility this week.
That's a New Orleans native, Vance Joseph, who is a defensive coordinator. So I don't expect him to survive. Um, in fact, he'll probably, except for Joe Vitt, he'll probably purge the whole defensive staff
Hmm.
and bring in all his people. Um, I wouldn't be surprised to see Chris Richard show up soon over there.
Yeah.
That you can't redo the defense, but and Sean's going to say in his his wrap up at the end of this season that hey, I'm redoing this team. I figured you'd like the name of the show tonight, with a picture of TreQuan. Yes, but it's more than just that. It's a lot of stuff that was no good tonight. Um, we'll get into that, Anna. But I thought of you. I'm the one that names the show.
Yeah.
I thought of you, Anna, when I came up with that name. So, um, yeah, it's there was a lot that was no good last night, this past weekend, and you look at some of these games that happened this weekend. Aside from the Dolphins blowing out the Broncos, the Cardinals are deliberately torpedoing their season.
Hmm.
They are going for the tank bowl. And they beat the Dallas Cowboys. Now,
Yeah.
granted, the Cowboys have only beat the Giants and the Jets, but people were putting Dallas in Super Bowl conversation.
Hmm.
They predicted that the Eagles and the Cowboys were going to be the NFC representatives this year,
Hmm.
and that was not a good Dallas team. And it's not just one player. It's not just two or three players on that roster. That team made a lot of mistakes and lost to the Cardinals. And Dobbs, who's the quarterback of the Cardinals, not even their regular quarterback. That was an embarrassing loss. The Buccaneers last night got blown out. Um, the Bengals won, but they don't look very good.
No.
They really don't. Now, granted, Joe Burrow's hurt, and it was obvious as you're watching that game that he can't drive off that foot. He was getting, or that calf, I should say. He was getting rid of the ball quickly and things like that. But, it was a lot of strange games this weekend. What else, other than the Saints game, of course, what else surprised you this weekend?
The Colts beating the Ravens. We can add that onto the list. The Texans trucking the Jaguars. It's and I'm a long time subscriber to what you consistently say. My Bayou Blitz host, Brendan Boylan, has borrowed your saying verbatim, is that the first 3 or 4 weeks of the NFL season is really just an extension of the preseason. And that we don't know who a lot of these teams are, and you're seeing that kind of manifest itself out. We saw the Saints, give up collapse, and give up a late 3-score lead. But that's not the first time that we have seen this throughout the season in the first 3 weeks either. Throughout the league, a lot of undisciplined play, down the stretch of games, especially, foolish mistakes, players doing or not doing, what we're typically seeing them, perform, up to they're not performing up to their capabilities, and things like that. It just, although the results of some of the games that we just threw out there, the results individually are surprising. When you gather it all in the grand scope, in the first couple weeks of the NFL season, again, going back to what you always say, these teams, we don't know who these teams are. And, really an NFL team's philosophy, they should have a 2-pronged philosophy in the first month of September. A, stay as healthy as you can. And B, just don't fall into an 0-3 or 0-4 hole, and you'll still have plenty of time to right the ship. Other than that, I think you can almost ignore a lot of the results that we've seen these first 3 weeks.
And that's where I'm going with this, because you're right. The first 4 weeks really kind of define a team's performance, barring injuries. And we're starting to see injuries now cropping up. We saw a lot of quarterbacks go down, including our own, over this past weekend. Alvin Kamara comes back this week. So we might see a change in the way the running game is done. I thought they kind of protected Miller a little bit Sunday, his first game back. They took him out a lot during the game. They ran him kind of late in the game. I think Andre Miller will get a bigger role as this goes on, but do you think Alvin Kamara is going to make a big difference in this offense right now?
Yeah, I do think he'll make a big difference. If nothing else, than just the threat of a healthy Alvin Kamara, is going to be a big help. Don't get me wrong. I've said it many times in the last 3 or 4 days. Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, none of them would be able to run behind this offensive line in the way they're performing right now. So I'm not necessarily thinking that Kamara is going to make a huge difference in the running game. A little bit of a help, obviously, because he's that darn talented. But again, you now have a bona fide receiving threat out of the backfield, something we've not seen the Saints use in the first 3 weeks. Assuming Jameis Winston gets the start on Sunday over an injured Derek Carr, Kamara and Winston have played together a little bit. And although Jameis has never been able to deliver the ball to Kamara in stride the way Drew Brees was able to, there's still some chemistry there. So at least you have a check down option, a dump down option, something like that. Remember a couple years ago on that Monday night in Seattle, Winston targeted Kamara, I think, with 10 or 12 throws. So we know that's going to that better open up another facet to the offense. If it doesn't, Pete Carmichael shouldn't be allowed to coach another game in New Orleans. Just the overall versatile threat of Alvin Kamara added to this offense that already has, Olave, Thomas, Shaheed playing at such a high level. I think that alone is going to be a big addition to this unit.
Yeah, I really kind of wanted to go into the positives of Sunday's game more so than the negatives, because the negatives, obviously, the offensive line and the injury to Derek Carr. But let's look at the focus on the positives first. You mentioned Rashid Shaheed. He is making a name for himself.
Mm-hmm.
This is a breakout. You're watching a breakout season happen. He has scored. I believe he has scored in every game so far. Did he score in the Carolina game?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
No. Jones had the 2 touchdowns.
Okay, that's right. Okay, but he scored in the Tennessee game, and he scored again on a punt return in against Green Bay. He is showing to be a very reliable passing game target.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody said last week, Shaheed seems to be the player that everybody thought Deontay Harris / Hardy was going to be, because he's a bigger receiver. He's a little more durable than Hardy was. Is he probably your biggest surprise, I guess, so far this season?
I'd have to say so, because I could see how a lot of people would say, point to Michael Thomas and call him the big surprise, because he stayed healthy. But I expected, I've said all along that I expected to see Thomas play with a chip on his shoulder and with an extra edge to him, this year. And so far, knock on wood, so far we have seen that. Even with Thomas's health, and Olave's productivity, I would have to agree that Shaheed's involvement in this offense has been the most pleasant surprise. I thought that he would be in line for a bigger role, but I figured ideally as a number 3 receiver, maybe a semi-gadget player, and then of course as a returner. But he's a legitimate pass catching option. You and I talked about him a lot last year, about being pleasantly surprised at what a precise route runner he was. Well, we're seeing that come to fruition a little bit. Obviously, Olave's development is is what attracts everybody's attention. But Rashid Shaheed is only a tick or 2 behind him, as far as how quickly he's developing and how important he is to this offense.
Absolutely. Well, of course, Olave is first-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Shaheed was an undrafted free agent. So you're really getting, as far as bang for your buck, you're getting more than what you ever could expect from an undrafted free agent guy. I'm sure every scouting department is going, how come we don't have a Shaheed on our team? How about some of the other surprises you saw on Sunday? To me, Alontae Taylor is having a breakout year. And I say that from the standpoint of he is making mistakes out there. I see those. But he has proven to be not only the reason why Roby was let go, despite not playing the slot, but he has proven to be one of the most sure tacklers on this defense. And that defense has a lot of good tacklers on there.
Yeah.
I just could not believe, not just the pass breakups, but, when they were trying to run bubble screens or those flare-out passes, he was on top of it. And he had two plays where he went after the quarterback. He went after Love. The first one, he just missed him. And the second one, he got him on a big third down. To me, I'm just blown away by Taylor. I love watching him play.
Yeah, I do too, and I loved Alontae Taylor last year. I was the first to admit, as exhausting in draft coverage as I do year in and year out, when they drafted Alontae Taylor in the second round, I was like, okay, I had done zero research on him. And then I did my crash course film study and all that stuff. I'm like, I could see why they like him. Yeah, and then when Marshawn Lattimore went down last year, and Paulson Adebo was dealing with an ankle injury at the time of his own, Alontae Taylor literally stepped into that number one cornerback role, and that defense really didn't miss a beat. All those great pass defense statistics that this team put up last year, the majority of them were with Marshawn Lattimore sidelined because of the abilities and the capabilities of Alontae Taylor. So yeah, I'm seeing the same thing that you've seen. I'm seeing him make his mistakes in the slot. He's essentially learning a new position. But he has a short memory. It doesn't curtail his aggressiveness at all. If anything, it makes him mad and kind of elevates his play a little bit. And I think he's as important to that defense as any other player on it. And I agree. I thought he had an outstanding game against Green Bay. I was also pleasantly surprised at how well Isaac Yiadom played, because you knew Green Bay was going to go after him, and they did. And except for a couple big plays down the stretch, he held up very well. Without Paulson Adebo in the lineup. And another guy that came away impressed by is Jordan Howden, who had to step in for Marcus May. So thank you, Marcus, again for your latest screw up. Howden didn't make the impact that we saw May make in those first two ball games, but you could tell that Howden is going to be a player in this defense. And the reason why they weren't worried about re-signing PJ Williams, at all this offseason, because Jordan Howden, I think, is going to capably fill that role going forward.
Well, and of course they're showing the matchup of the evening right now in the background. Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans. Lattimore, I thought, had a down game against Green Bay, but a down game for Lattimore at the level he's playing right now is an exceptional game for most cornerbacks. You almost wanted to see he's not going to allow a single catch with the Packers receivers. He did allow a couple catches, but they pretty much stayed away from him most of the game. They, especially in the fourth quarter, they went strictly at Taylor and Howden. I'm sorry, not Howden. Taylor and Yiadom, especially Yiadom on the outside. Mm-hmm. And the Saints really didn't give him much help. They let Yiadom go out there, and you're going to handle it one-on-one. You got to make a play. And the only part that really bugged me was, of course, the two big penalties, one on Yiadom, one on Taylor, that got them 67 yards to go and get the first touchdown of the game.
Yeah,
that really bothered me. Not so much I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a penalty. Yeah, you are holding or you're interfering with, but you also have been letting that shit go all game until right then in the fourth quarter. That's what got me. You can't, again, let's go to basketball. You can't say, okay, on this end of the court, we're going to let you just mug each other. But on this end of the court, you touch the other guy, we're calling a foul.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to balance it out. You can't just call it tight. And then you let it go. Except when the Saints had the ball. They let it go kind of pretty much, the rest of the game once they got it to 11. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's amazing how you just coincidentally you allow that to happen. It just, that drives me crazy, and that's why I hate pass interference calls, because there's such judgmental calls, and they're the biggest penalty of a game.
It's the book of Goodell. It's you call them keep them close calls. I've called them different things that are a bit more sinister. But indeed. I mean, whether you believe the refs are instructed to do that kind of thing for certain teams or certain players or in certain situations, and I do. I make no secret of that. At the same time, that going back to Alontae Taylor, that is the one thing that I don't like about Taylor's game on deep balls. he doesn't very consistently get his head turned back around.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in Goodell's NFL, you are just asking for a flag, because a lot of the times, and we saw it last year too, a lot of the times that he got flagged, he didn't make physical contact that would warrant pass interference. He
Right.
just made it easy for the ref to throw that flag because he didn't get his head turned around either in time or at times not at all.
Yeah. And there was a play early in the game where Taylor did basically the same thing. It wasn't a
Yeah.
deep ball, but it was a short pass. And he didn't have his head turned around at all. And he had his arms out like this. And the ball, he basically broke the ball up by face
Hmm.
guarding. And I'm going, okay, that was more severe
Yeah.
than the one you called him on way downfield late in the fourth, or in the middle of the fourth quarter. And that's what was driving me nuts. I'm just
Hmm.
like, that. Where's the consistency on this? A lot of people are like, oh, you're just a Saints fan. You're going to deny it. You're going to say that the league's against you, and you're just bitching about penalties because they were penalties at critical times. That's not my point. My point is, if you see it one way, you have to call it the same way
Hmm.
later in the game. If you're going to let them play early in the game, you're going to have, I'd rather see all the penalties in the first half, honestly.
Right.
I mean, I would, because it's frustrating as hell. I'm the one who gets pissed off when, just like everybody else, that when they throw the flag and kill a big play. But it kills me that it happens in the fourth quarter, because this is exactly what I did. I threw my arms up and went, of course.
Hmm.
Here we go. Because I said there's no way they're going to allow the Packers to only have 3 points in this game when
Yep.
you got Jordan Love trying to keep that streak going of Green Bay quarterbacks winning their home opener, and they always throw a touchdown pass in Lambeau Field.
Hmm.
And I like the Packers, so don't it's not like this is the Falcons or the Cowboys or the 49ers. I'm not bitching that, oh yeah, this is one of, the league's favorites, of course. But I'm saying that you got all these records and all this tradition. They're not just going to let that shit slide. They got
No.
people playing. They got people playing fantasy football, And what was the point? What was the gambling point? What did it go to?
1.5.
1.5. What did they win by? 1. Yeah. That's Don't get
Well,
me started. But I am
right.
ranting.
Well, and as I always say,
I agree,
if you're
Jimmy Gumbo.
if you're trying to figure out the Goodell angle, all you need to do is be imaginative and figure out the storyline. And you just nailed the storyline when you said Jordan Love replacing the quote unquote legendary Aaron Rodgers. What a storyline in his home opener. After replacing Rod, I think he started a couple games as an injury replacement before, but
Mm-hmm.
as Rodgers' replacement in his home opener, coming down from 17 to nothing down against such a good defense in the fourth quarter. There's your storyline, ladies and gentlemen. Week
Oh,
in and week out with every NFL game. All you have to do is figure out Goodell's storyline. And once you figure that out, you can almost predict. I hate to use the word script unless I'm joking, but you can almost predict the outcome or the near outcome of every game. These games aren't fixed, folks,
mm-mm.
because you can't fix it with the NFL players. Most of them are just way too far competitive. Is it slanted towards a certain angle? Corrupted. I've used that word. Definitely. Definitely tilted, towards the favor of certain players, certain teams, certain markets, certain storylines. That's all it is.
They're gonna. My thing is they're gonna give the other team the opportunity. That's the key. The opportunity. With those 2 penalties, they moved from the Packers 20 to the Saints 35 or 34-yard line with 2 penalties. You now have the opportunity. You can stop them, and they're not gonna prevent you from stopping them unless they think they can.
Right.
But they've given them the opportunity, and NFL teams' offenses are too good that they're going to come away with some points when you're at or near the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the nature of the beast. I get that. And then 18-17, perfect storyline. Saints are driving down the field. We're going to allow you to get down the field. We don't want you scoring a touchdown, so we're going to shut down that drive, that big drive that you had. It was a critical drive to me, the one right after the Packers scored 11.
Yeah.
You had the Saints went 3 and out. The first play was a run by Taysom Hill, and yeah, Michael Thomas was holding. I get it. He's holding the dude's hand. Do they call that? Sometimes they don't.
Not usually.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the friggin' Jimmy the Graham pass interference on a Hail Mary against the 49ers, which I will never get over.
Me either.
Because I have never in my life have seen a flag thrown for pushing off on a Hail Mary. Because They all push off.
Mm-hmm.
My God, they're all jostling for the ball. You know, they're all got their hands all each other. You know, so I just, yeah. So here's your opportunity to possibly win the game. We're going to give you this opportunity. Let's see what you do with it. Okay. Yeah. And that's how these things work. So we've just jumped into some of the negatives, but I mean, you can't help it because we're talking about two guys who I thought had pretty good games considering the pressure they were under. I did like that they kind of flip-flopped him a little bit. They put Taylor outside in the beginning and then moved him back to slot. And when they had him at slot, they were blitzing him a lot.
Yeah.
I did like all that. So they were obviously key components of the game. Pete Werner. Have you been watching Pete Werner this year? How would you grade his performance? What level? If we're talking like good, Pro Bowl, All Pro. How would you get? Because obviously, I think both you and I both are like, no, he's playing. He's out there being a baller. How would you rate his performance so far?
I felt that way about Pete Werner in the first two games. Pro Bowler, maybe fringe All Pro. On Sunday, he was still very aggressive, flying all over the field, which I have always loved to see. But Jordan Love made him look foolish in the open field on both of his open scrambles. And there was another play where Werner, I don't remember if it was a short pass or a Green Bay rusher got to the second level, but Werner was like juked right out of his shorts. He's got to be more disciplined than that. But if you're talking one bad game out of three, that's a pretty good ratio. I still think Pete Werner has a bright future in this league. And one of the ways that I was critical of Werner in the offseason, when analyzing this upcoming season, was that Pete Werner has always made the small plays. But his first 2 years in the league, and even last year when he got off to such a good start, he didn't make the game-changing plays that you need linebackers to make. And I saw that from him in the first two games. He was making those plays. Mm-hmm. He didn't make them against Green Bay, but I'm still very encouraged about Pete Werner going forward.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about, the run up the middle where Pete got juked. The big problem I think that Pete has had is he is being very aggressive. And so he does overrun the plays. And I don't think they quite prepared for Love to run as much as he did, because I noticed that they were running away from Cam Jordan.
Yeah,
they were running at Carl Granderson's side, and Granderson made some plays, but basically he could not seal that edge. And I thought that's where the issue was. They were getting outside too much. And I was waiting for the adjustment where they were going to slide Werner out or start putting Taylor more on that side, because that was probably, if I had a negative on the defense, I think my negative is the lack of pass rush.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of it, especially with two offensive linemen down for the Packers. They only got one sack, and that was from Taylor, none from the defensive line. And I think it was because they couldn't contain Love in the pocket. They could get pressure on him with 3. They got pressure on him with 4, but he's able to move outside away from Cam Jordan, and I thought that was probably the biggest culprit, especially on the second touchdown drive, where they just could not get to Love, and he was standing in that pocket for a good 3-4 seconds. How did you see that? Did you see the similar thing?
Yeah, 100%. That outside of the offensive line, the biggest disappointment in that entire game for me was the lack of disruption from the defensive line. They weren't getting the tackles for loss to the TFLs against the run, and they didn't get nearly enough pressure on Jordan Love. Even when they forced him out of the pocket, they didn't hurry any of his throws. They didn't rush him into rash decisions, and nothing of that nature. The defensive tackles, I thought, played reasonably well. And like you said, more often than not, any play that was slanted to the outside, whether it was a design roll or whether it was a running play, they were doing so away from Cam Jordan, which is pretty typical for opponents to do. But the lack of disruption from the Saints defensive line, I was especially enraged at, because the Packers were missing 2 Pro Bowlers, both on the left side. I expected a big game out of Granderson. I expected some blitzes, some overload blitzes to that side during the course of the game, and we didn't get any of either, really. I think both of Taylor's blitzes came off of that side, but outside of that, we didn't. You wouldn't have known that the Packers were missing Bakhtiari and Elgin Jenkins at all.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't blitz. Demario Davis through that left side. Let those two guys eat him up, eat up the blockers, and then let Davis come flying in. And I think it was part of it was because they weren't containing Love. Nobody came on that end, so when he tried to scramble away, he was going right into it. And I was really that was probably the most frustrating part about the whole defensive performance, because their attitude was they were just going to let them kind of. And I think it's because they were up 17-0, but kind of let them burn up clock by going between the 20s, but not letting them go into the end zone. And when your offense isn't moving the football anymore, that you just can't play that way anymore. And you saw that in that third scoring drive, where they went up tempo and weren't allowing the Saints to substitute, and just trying to run the Saints off the field. And before you knew it, they were down in the red zone again, which is very similar to what the Panthers did on that meaningless touchdown drive. But it just kind of reminded me of that, okay, you're going to have trouble dealing with tempo now? Is that what was going to happen? Is this how these teams are going to come back in the game, is going up tempo and putting the pressure on you guys? Y'all have to show something else. You have to show you can stop that up tempo.
Yeah.
And the way you stop that is you got to tackle for losses. You've got to stop them early. Brian Brzee, I want to talk about him a little bit too, because once again, I thought the snaps he was in, he had a presence. There's one play in particular I keep looking back on. I said it was 3 blockers. It looks more like 2. I thought the back coming out of the backfield got a chip on him, but on replay, it's clear he didn't.
Yeah.
But Brian Brzee going through 2 blockers and still getting the quarterback to tip the ball away on that screen pass, that was something.
Yeah, that young man is going to be a monster. You could just see it, and it looks like his confidence is increasing, with game after game. Such impressive power, I realize I realize it's the burst into the backfield or to the ball carrier that catches the average fan's attention. But just the power that he showed on that play and several others, through those first 3 weeks are what's catching my attention. That, and he has such an instant get off at the snap, that he's going to be a problem, for blockers, and even more so as a pass rusher once he kind of develops those secondary and reactive, pass rush moves. I can't say enough at how impressed I am by Brzee so far.
And he's just getting better. I mean, he's really earning his snaps right now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really a positive. I know there's a lot of people right now who are looking at the Broncos collapse and saying, "Oh man, look if we would have just taken the other deal for Peyton, gotten a second round or a fourth round pick, I think in 2023, and if you get a first round pick in 2024, we could have a top 5, maybe the number 1 overall pick." To me, you can't look at it that way because we needed a first round pick this year's draft,
Yes.
this past
Yes.
draft. We needed that pick. And Brian Brzee is going to be, he is a top 10 pick. Even if the Saints had the 10th overall pick and the choice was between Jalen Carter and Brian Brzee, I'm going to say the Saints were going to take Brian Brzee over Jalen Carter. And the reason why I say this, because I know a lot of people are going to hear this comment and go, "You're a friggin' moron. Why not take a guy from the SEC?" Okay. Carter got arrested. Carter had a legal problem because he got his teammate killed. Okay? He was overweight. He pretty much refused to do most of the pre-draft stuff like the combine and pro day and stuff like that. He was like, this is my tape. You saw what I did. Go ahead and take me if you want me. And I promise you there was a giant picture of Jonathan Sullivan on the wall going, the last time we took a fat bastard, a defensive tackle, that's what we ended up with. I'm not doing that again. So you can't look at Carter's production now and go back to the draft and say, "Oh yeah, you should have known he was going to be a good player because look what he's doing in Philadelphia." They're going to take Brian Brzee in that situation. So to me, we got the better pick, not between Carter and Brzee, I'm saying, but we got the better pick by getting a first-round pick this past draft and getting a high second-round pick that could be the 33rd overall pick, which is damn good. I mean, top of the second, I'd take that. That's a fringe third-round pick, first pick of the of day 2 of the draft. I'm gonna take that, and you have your own number 1 pick. I get it. You want 2 number 1 picks. You want to get all those picks early. You want it. Everybody wants to do what the Texans did. Essentially, pick number 1 back to back. That would be great. I just don't. No, you got it. With the last time we gambled, that's how the Eagles ended up with the 10th overall pick.
Right.
So I'm not playing that game. Our luck, we take the other deal, and the Broncos are winning 8, 9, 10 games. And that second round pick is far lower than our own second round pick. No thanks. No thanks. I'm sorry. That conversation is starting to kind of bubble up because the usual suspects, the fire Dennis Allen crowd, I told you didn't want to get Derek Carr crowd, Penning was a wasted draft pick crowd, the same old Saints crowd, that they're out there in full force now because the Saints blew a 17-point lead. Let's get your thoughts on the offense. I know it's offensive, and I took, when I wrote the tease for tonight's show, I did borrow a line from John McKay since we're playing the Bucs. Not the usual one, how do you feel about your offensive execution? I'm all in favor of it. But the one basically with Bob, did I lose you? Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. But the one, it's paraphrasing his line about his team not blocking well, but they made up for it by not tackling. I said, this offensive line doesn't pass block doesn't run pass block very well. That's what it is. They don't pass block very well, but they made up for it by lousy run blocking. What does this offensive line do well other than give up sacks?
Make penalties. Get penalties. Get pushed backwards in the run game. They seem awfully friendly. They're all gathering around. They're all gathering around their quarterback to help him off the ground after he gets himself killed. So maybe that's a feather in their cap that they're really nice guys. Because they sure aren't playing like decent football players right now. None of them.
And go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say what these guys are. You've got 4 first rounders because I'm going to put Pete in there. You've got 4 first rounders
and a second
rounder. And okay, we'll throw Hurston in, undrafted free agent, or I think he may have been a draft pick. I don't remember, but he's a free agent for us. So it's not like the Saints aren't investing a lot in this offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
They paid Ramczyk. They paid McCoy. They just paid Ruiz. So, these guys are getting money. So the Saints are investing a lot in this line, and they're not getting anything for this.
Nope.
What the hell is going on around here, to quote Vince Lombardi?
I really don't know. First of all, let's start with the guy that everybody wants to blame, the player that everybody wants to blame on that line, Trevor Penning. He's the least of their concerns. I thought that he played the best game out of the 7 of them, if you count Landon Young. Because remember, Ruiz left with a concussion, so they brought Pete in at left guard. Then they rotated Hurst over to Ruiz's right guard position. They brought Landon Young in for, I think, 8 or 10 snaps, and jumbo packages after that. So, we saw 7 New Orleans offensive linemen. And Penning, to me, played the best of all of them. Not that I'm ready to put Penning in the Pro Bowl anytime soon, but at least with him, I am seeing noticeable improvement in each of the 3 games. He's getting some help, in obvious passing situations, but we're seeing a better Trevor Penning. We're seeing everybody else regress. Whoever the hell stole Ryan Ramczyk and replaced him with a cardboard cutout with no arms, we need to find Ryan Ramczyk and help him, because that's not Ryan Ramczyk wearing number 71 out on the field. He's getting to paraphrase your John McKay line. At least he's consistent. He's getting beat on his outside shoulder and his inside shoulder just as often. Cecil Ruiz. No, I'm not going to say after he got paid. All I will say is Cecil Ruiz looks like the 2021 version of Cecil Ruiz, not the version we saw last year. Andrus Pete at this point, he's on the tail end of his career. Let's face reality. The injuries have caught up. Pete could still be effective in small doses, a start here or there, but he's not your long-term starter anymore. James Hurst has been a capable starter for several seasons, not only for New Orleans, but also the Baltimore Ravens. And Eric McCoy coming into this year was viewed by many, myself included, as one of the better centers in the game. We see none of that. I just got done blasting Ramczyk. He looks like a human turnstile out there. I blasted Ruiz, but the interior blocking, these guys are veterans. Pete, Hurst, McCoy, Ruiz. They're not only veterans in the league, they're veterans with each other. So you can't blame chemistry either. They are absolutely helpless against the inside twists and stunts the defenses are throwing at them. And you know what? I throw that on coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's the players that have to make the plays out there, and they're not the ones doing it. But when you're screwing up that, things that you should see in film and prepare for in practice, and you're not able to do it, that part's on coaching. So, the article I wrote about the offensive line earlier today, some people came at me, saying I wasn't blaming coaches enough. You need to reread that, because although I didn't mention the coaches by name, the way I phrase certain things, if you know football, you realize, you know what, that's not just a player thing, that's a coach thing too. So this whole thing is broken right now, and it terrifies me.
I was not happy when they brought Doug Marrone back. Um, I know he's supposed to make that run game more physical, and that's how he was sold. But I thought Marrone, um, going back to his time as Jacksonville head coach, lost a lot of his fire and his edge. And I think you're seeing that in the way this offensive line is playing. They're not aggressive. They're
No.
not going after people and blowing people off the ball. They're almost, when Gary Gibbs was the defensive coordinator, Sean Payton's first defensive coordinator, he brought in a read and react defense, which um, Spagnuolo runs that kind of defense with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a read and react. It works if you've got the speed on your defense that you can react quickly. This offensive line is almost read and reacting to whatever the defense looks like they're going to do. And because of that, they're allowing pretty simple and basic stunts. And I've been blaming on communication, but it's frustrating because it just feels like the offensive line. We'll get into that in just a second. The injury report hasn't come out yet. That'll be out tomorrow. But it feels like they are just reacting to whatever the defense is doing and not dictating or not calling it out. So you have communication breakdowns across the board. Let's look at Foster Moreau since Jimmy Gumbo brought that up. He was out this past week. So you saw Landon Young out there as the third tight end. On the play that Carr got hurt, Young was pretty much one-on-one with that number 52. I don't remember his name
Gary,
right now.
Rashawn
Gary. Okay, he was out there one-on-one a lot with Rashawn Gary. And to me, that was a huge problem because you're supposed to be a offensive tackle and you can't handle a linebacker that's fast. Really? And some people are like, well, Carr holds the ball too long. He's not really holding the ball that long. It's the rushes getting there so fast. The average time he has to throw is about 2 seconds. And these are long developing pass routes because we can't run the ball. And it's second and third and long, not second and 3 or third and 2. So it just feels like these guys, I don't know. No one can do the job. There's nobody out there that can just go put in there and get this thing straight. And I feel like that's falling on Monroe. Not Monroe. I'm sorry. Falling on the offensive line coach. I'm sorry. Doug Marrone.
Yeah.
Doug Marrone. I said Moreau. I meant Marrone. Yeah. But it's falling on this coach because he's not making the adjustments and talking to these guys and communicate with one another. When you spot the stunt, call out the guy you got so the other guy knows what to get. One of the plays I saw McCoy go and double team with Ruiz and leave a lane wide open right in Carr's face.
Yeah.
And poor Hurst, he's blocking his man on the other side, and it just opens it up like the Red Sea, and Carr's got a guy coming right at him. How do you step into that throw? How do you make that throw? And the route's not even developing yet because he's in a shotgun. So there's no drop back and say, okay, I'm taking a 5-step drop, and on step 5, my guy should be making his break, so I'm throwing to my spot. That's not happening. So I mean, what do you? I mean, do you see anything that can fix this?
No, I don't. I don't, because this used to be, in the running game, a hat on a hat offensive
Mm-hmm.
line where they just blew people off the ball. It used to be a very, very coordinated pass protection unit where you could throw as many twists and stunts and intricate looks at them as you wanted inside. But you knew, because you had a shorter quarterback in Drew Brees, that pass protection had to be exemplary, and it was. Ryan Ramczyk is clearly not the guy that's going to eliminate a TJ or a JJ Watt, from a game plan week in and week out anymore. He's not that guy. He's the guy that needs help, or he's the guy that you're keeping your fingers crossed. Can he just hold his pass block for an extra second on this third down so your quarterback can get rid of the ball? He's become that guy. Again, Trevor Penning is developing. I think Trevor is going to be just fine. But these other guys, somebody needs to light a fire under their ass. If it's not Marone, and Marone used to be that guy. I used to love how Doug Marone coached. If it's not Marone, then you brought in a young guy who is one of the best offensive players in your franchise history, in Jari Evans. Jari was given a lot of credit for the individual development of Cecil Ruiz last year. So we know Jari can coach. We know Jari knows offensive line. Maybe you let a guy like Jari Evans have a little bit more say-so with these guys during the course of the week, because I know, Saints fans, I know you want to sign your guy Collins from LSU. There's a reason why people aren't beating down his door right now. There's a reason why Nick Saldiveri, the rookie, has been inactive for 3 games, because he's not ready to play. There's really nobody out there that's a physical upgrade to what you already have, because as Alan pointed out, as I pointed out in my piece earlier today, 4 first-round draft choices and a second-rounder, and all of them, except for Penning, all of them are established veterans in this league. Most offensive line, most NFL teams, would kill to have an offensive line with this pedigree. I don't know. It's something. We talk about the locker room leaders on this team. Maybe a Cam Jordan, a Demario Davis, a Derek Carr. It needs to get in these guys' faces and look, you are the unit that could derail something potentially special that we have on this team. Fix it, be better, whatever saying you want to use, because it's got to come from individual effort from each of these guys.
And it's the middle of the defense, because you can go to 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, and to help both your tackles. But the middle of your offensive line, McCoy, Reeves, who may or may not play, I don't know how he is in the concussion protocol right now. Hurst, Pete, if he has to play. Those are the guys that have to start dictating. Those are the guys who have to communicate and say, look, we're going to give him a pocket, because let's face it, when we had Jari Evans and Carl Nix, and you had a undrafted free agent at center, Breeze had average tackles on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and I say average because Zach Strief and Jerron Bushrod were not Pro Bowl guys. They were guys that were going to need help with speed guys, but they were big physical guys. They communicated well with the inside of that line, but the strength of that team was from Nix to Evans. And when the pressure came to Breeze, he had a nice pocket to slide up into and uncork the bomb. Carr doesn't have that. And now you're going to a guy with an even slower release. You're going to a guy who takes even longer to process routes as they develop. You're going to a guy who's looking for the big play and has a tendency to overtrust his arm and force it in a double and triple coverage rather than do the check down. It's tailor made for an upset, which is a shame because the Bucs are not a very good team.
No.
I watched them last night, and they really aren't a good team. They've got the shell of a good team there.
Mm-hmm.
There are some good players there, but Mike Evans is going to get locked down by Lattimore. He loves that matchup. That's his ideal receiver. If you can give Lattimore a Mike Evans every week, that's what he loves. Big, tall, lanky, physical receivers. He loves that kind of game. And I think Adebo probably comes back this week, so he's going to be matched up on Goodwin. And then Taylor's going to be locked on whoever plays the slot. So I think, match, and the Bucs don't run the football very well.
Nope.
Baker makes bad decisions if he gets pressure. Their offensive line isn't that good because you saw that against the Eagles. This is a game where the Saints should get right. But I'm terrified with Jameis Winston under center because it's an emotional game for him too.
Mm-hmm.
He is yet to beat this team. Yeah, he was winning when he blew his knee out, but he didn't finish that game. And he tried playing last year with the broken back and all his other problems. And he was doing okay for a little while, but then he turned the ball over late because he was pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, pushing it by trying to throw the deep passes. So, I mean, this isn't a get-right game unless Alvin Kamara becomes a central part of this game plan and he gets the Bucs thinking so much about Alvin Kamara that Shaheed and Thomas and Olave get behind the secondary. And the defense has to do this. They have to get turnovers. They have to get turnovers this time around. Is that how you see this game unfolding?
Yeah, pretty much. I love the matchup on paper in favor of the Saints defense. Because we've seen the Saints front four heavily pressure the Buccaneers backfield with a better offensive line and with a better quarterback. And even with a better running game. And Tampa Bay has none of that. Baker Mayfield is playing fairly well, but we also know what Baker Mayfield is. He's a guy that's going to force. He's a guy that's going to make a lot of mistakes when you pressure him, and the Saints are perfectly capable of doing that. And I respect Mike. I respect Mike Evans as a player, not as a human being. But Lattimore, I thought Lattimore played a lazy game last week for him. Mm-hmm. And he gets up for these matchups against Mike Evans anyway. I don't know how healthy Adebo is, but Adebo or Alante Taylor are each capable of covering Chris Godwin capably enough to at least minimize his impact on the game. And the Buccaneers, they have the lowest rush average in the NFL right now. It's well under 3 yards per carry. So the Saints should dominate on that side of the ball. Should. On the other side, I'm with you. I'm terrified. It's not that I don't think that Jameis Winston can't capably run this offense, but he needs a line in front of him. And we just got done covering the fact that he doesn't have that. And we know that Jameis has a hard time channeling his emotions in the first place. And that is what scares me about this. Alvin Kamara, Mike Thomas, they've each had some big games against the Buccaneers in their career. And I think you rely on those two veterans. I mean, Olave is going to do his thing. He's become that kind of player where you expect a minimal amount of production, week in and week out. But in this game, I think the coaches have to be in Jameis's ear and say, you need tunnel vision for Mike Thomas and for Alvin Kamara. We cannot protect you well enough for you to let a play develop to Olave or Shaheed down the field. You hit Olave short, you get the ball in his feet, and Shaheed too. Get the ball to them short and quick. Let them do their thing. Don't wait for plays downfield. We'll use them to take the top off, but that's only to free up Michael Thomas, Jawan Johnson, who Jameis has a decent rapport with, and Alvin Kamara. You work them. You work this Buccaneers defense from sideline to sideline, and the big plays will come by
Mhm.
just in the open field alone. They have to get inside his ear to do that. They need to make him understand. If he does and can play within himself, then I love the Saints' chances because again, I do think they'll get some turnovers on defense. I think this defense is pissed that they weren't able to put the Packers away last week, and I think that they'll
Mhm.
come out with a chip on their shoulder. But that offense, they have to take care of the ball, and they have to get at least they have to be smart on Sunday.
And to me, Jameis has to start running again.
Yeah.
Carr is not the mobile quarterback, so Carr is going to get his sacks because he is just not going to be able to escape pressure, and he's not getting rid of the ball in 2 seconds. And and I think of Sean too with Baker Mayfield because Oklahoma, he was a big OU guy. But yeah, that's to me, the key that Jameis has to have is he has to be able to run away from the pressure. When the Bucs are going to blitz the hell out of him, they see that offensive line has problems, they're going to blitz. So when they send the blitz, you run, just like Jordan Love did. You run away from Devin White's side and Levante David's side, and you go to the other side. Because that'll get them to back the hell off. And it
Mm-hmm.
also opens things up for the running game, too, because now they're going to be so keyed on going after Jameis that he can do a quick handoff and they can get through there. But to me, the Saints have to do this. They have to get turnovers. They have to, get short fields for the offense to have an opportunity to score. We didn't even talk about it, but Jimmy Graham got his touchdown. That was a great play. It was like he went back in time. It was almost 2014, 2013-ish. He
Yeah.
just blocks out a guy, and there's a touchdown right there. And it's like he needs to be out there a lot more, guys. You need to throw to him a little bit more. Have him run some more routes. I know he's 36, but you can still use him a little bit more. Taysom Hill, do you think, given that Carr is going to probably be inactive. They signed a quarterback today.
Mm-hmm.
He probably the emergency guy.
Yeah.
Hayner's got a few more weeks. He's got 3 more weeks, I think, of being suspended. Do you think that Taysom Hill will be doing what he does, or do you think Taysom Hill is going to be kind of removed from the game plan because they need him to be the backup in case Jameis gets hurt?
I hope that Taysom Hill is going to do what he does. But if it were me, we would see a lot less snaps from Taysom Hill at tight end because this whole game plan would have a heavy mixture of Taysom Hill out of the backfield. As the quarterback, when you line up Jameis Winston out wide and, go 10 on 11, or even pull Jameis off the field altogether. Because to me, that does 2 things. That 3 things, really. It gives Tampa Bay a different look. It gives you more of a power rushing formation. And it lets coaches get in, kind of pull Jameis aside from, maybe a play or 2 a series and just calm him down. Again, corral those emotions. I think if they do anything less with Taysom, then they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. I get the concern of if something happens to Jameis, we need Taysom to be prepared. Because you don't want to go to Jake Luton. You do not want that scenario whatsoever. So I get that, but you could still prepare Taysom, to step in for, knock on wood, for a Jameis getting nicked up. If you had him involved in the game plan as the Wildcat quarterback or as that complimentary option all week long, is that the way you would use Taysom for this one?
I would too. because it's a bruised AC joint, and it's a pain tolerance thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to affect. It'll affect his throws from the standpoint of how much pain can you take when you let that ball rip.
Yeah.
Um, but if you can, if Carr is healthy enough that he can take mental reps and you can make him the third quarterback, and Lutton the emergency quarterback. Is it Lutton? How do you say his last name?
I pronounced it
Uh,
Luton, but I have no
it's
idea.
Lutton. So I don't know if it's Lutton or Luton, but yeah, if you can let him be that emergency quarterback, um, and let Carr be your number 3 guy, then maybe you can use Taysom, because the Saints have like this 16-1 record if Taysom rushes the ball 7 times or more,
Yep.
and if he goes under 7 rushes, it's something. It's bizarre. It's like completely reversed. It's like 1 in 22 or something like that if he has under 7 rushes. So it's like you want to give him the ball 8 times to start the game. Just to get that stat out the way. All right, we got it. But yeah, to me, with the problems with Kamara, just coming back, you almost want to have Taysom as your power rusher, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if Kendre Miller can do this right now. Now, Tony Jones has impressed me. He's done an
Yeah.
incredible job picking up the blitz and blocking out of the backfield. But, Tony Jones, if you need 2 yards, he's going to get you 2 yards. You need 5 yards, he's going to get you 2 yards. I mean, that's the
Right.
kind of back he is. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be an effective between the tackles runner. You still don't have that. Miller has yet to develop that personality. Jamal Williams is out with, it's an injured hamstring. I don't know how severe it is, but he's on IR for at least 4 weeks. So, you're kind of back to where you were with Ingram.
Yeah.
The only difference is you've got a guy who's a rookie that's coming off of a knee and hamstring injury. He kind of seems to be a guy that maybe later on in the season he's going to be much more effective. But
Mm-hmm.
right now it's kind of like, we got the training wheels on you, buddy. You can only come in for certain plays. We don't trust you yet pass blocking, and we don't know if you can be able to catch the ball out of the backfield against first string defenses. You did it great, third string defenses. So, this is why Kamara is going to be important in this game, and Kamara is going to be after the guy that Winston's got to be like, I get to know I cannot go 1, 2, 3. Okay, where's Thomas? Oh, look, Shahid's getting ready to break. Okay. You take a 7-step drop, and by the time you take your 7th step and kind of do that shuffle forward that he likes to do, that's his ass. He's not going to
Yep.
make it.
Yep.
So Calvin, we destroyed the offensive line. That's the biggest thing you missed. We really savaged the offensive line, and we talked about the good players. We talked about Shaheed. We talked about Taylor. We talked about Yidam. We thought Yidam played a pretty good game, and we talked a little bit about the linebacker Werner. Last question of the night. Were you shocked that Demario Davis missed that tackle on that 2-point conversion? I
Yes.
was.
Yes.
Because that was tailor made for him. And I couldn't believe he dove at him. I'm like, just stand your ground, make him come to you, and bury that son of a bitch. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm standing
Yeah.
on the other side of that goal line waiting for you.
I felt the same way, and that's
to me, a quarterback versus a linebacker.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean that just goes to show how high a level that we are used to Demario Davis, competing at. Because I thought Demario played a strong game, not one of his better games, but a strong game against Green Bay. And to be disappointed at that one play, that just that just goes to show, because I think Demario Davis played an outstanding first two ball games of the season too. He's one of those guys that I expect to come into this Tampa Bay game with a major chip on his shoulder.
That just was that surprised me like nothing else. When I saw it was Demario versus um, Love, I'm like, you ain't getting it. It ain't happening. And sure, no sooner I'm saying that, he lunges and he jukes him and gets in. I went, this son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
It shocked me and it was frustrating because if they stop that play, they're still two scores down.
Yeah.
And I don't think they had enough time to come back. And that's what was really frustrating about this. Um, it is because of the flags. They all. Marcus May did the same thing against Carolina. I said this last year, and I feel this way still, even though my quarterback could run. Um, I I think if your quarterback runs and he's not behind the line of scrimmage or outside the pocket, he should be fair game. You should be
Yep.
able to take his friggin' head off. And
Absolutely.
that I'd be pissed off if it was my quarterback too, but I think you should just not allow them to slide because you have so many running quarterbacks out in the NFL
Hmm.
now. It's not like you got Peyton Manning trucking out there at a mile and a half. A turtle's passing him up because he's running so slow. Uh, to me, you become a running back, and we
Hmm.
don't have protections for running backs. Running backs can't
Nope.
slide. So yeah, you're exactly right. The quarterbacks know they're going to get the extra yardage, and it's very, very frustrating. Oh, look at this old school Bronco jacket. I know I've seen you wear this before, but it's even got the stripes on the sleeves. Where did you get that?
I got it a couple years ago. I was with at a flea market with my daughters, and yeah, I always peruse like the football card section, the jerseys and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
my oldest daughter Brianna, God bless her soul. Sometimes I want to throttle her. Uh, I picked up this Bronco starter jacket, and she goes, try it on. I'm like, okay. Um, yeah, and the guy comes over, and yeah, he's like that looks great on you. Yeah, of course it does. Um, and I asked him how much it was,
Oh
and
yeah, exactly.
right, I asked him how much it was, and he said like $15 or something like that. Uh, and yeah, I started to take it off, uh, and my loving daughter goes, she goes, oh dad, she goes, that fits perfect on you. She goes, you never buy yourself anything. I'm like, shut up. And I still put it back. He goes, you got to listen to your daughter. I said, no. I said I'm going to have a word with her. uh, and we were walking around the flea market a little bit, and then we walked back, and uh, we were walking past that direction again, and he sees me and he yells out, and he goes, I could take it down to 10. And I look at him. I said, no. I said, that's twice as much as I'm willing to pay. Long
Dude,
story short, I get it for five. Get a starter jacket for $5.
I ended up paying $15 because I'm a stupid son of a bitch. I'm like, sold. Let's go. I'm sorry. Yeah, because old school jackets like that. Hell, if they made an adult size, remember the jackets, the Sears Roebuck catalog jacket with the vinyl sleeves and
Oh yeah.
if they had an adult version that looked like that and they got it for sale, I'm buying it. I've seen other versions with the leather sleeves, and I had a Letterman jacket way back when from high school. But
Right.
they had the leather sleeves and everything else like that. Um, the only thing I don't like all the crap on the back that they like to put on there, like Saints, and then what they've done, and all those other. I
Yeah.
don't like all that on the side. I just want a plain jacket. I want the black jacket with the gold sleeves and, the Saints little logo on patch. That's all I want. Keep it simple, man. I'm a simple man,
Yep.
so that's all I need. So, yeah, I see a jacket like that, a Saints jacket like that. I'm like, sold, son. I'm rolling with this one. Jim Moore special. I'm with Jim Moore. I'm good. So that's great. Okay. I'm not going to ask predictions of scores because I'm not going to get into that right now. I don't know how these games are going to play out. If Carr was playing, it's one thing, but with Winston, I got to watch him play for a little while.
Yeah.
Real quick, though, before we go, what's on the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night?
Nothing. Brendan and I have to move it to Thursday this week.
Okay.
So we're doing Bayou Blitz this Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time. Still the same time slot. And folks, make sure you check Brandon and I out on Friday evening too. Download the PSF app. We're going to do a weekly show on Fridays. On PSF, and that's also where we're going to do pregame now. And we don't do a halftime show this year, but we are going to do postgame. Brendan did it last week. I was nursing a hand that might have accidentally hit a brick wall 3 or 4 times. Was the reason that I couldn't join him on the postgame show.
Oh, we're gonna have to get some anger management here. What? I haven't punched anything since the 2006 NFC Championship game. I didn't even punch anything for the 2018 one. I did punch the shed door in 2006, but I haven't punched anything else like that in a while. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old, and I'm thinking about, dude, if you fuck up this hand, how are you gonna operate a mouse? How are you gonna type anything?
Well, and that's the problem. I write a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the problem I've been having all week. Because I don't know if you can see it in the dark, but my hand is kind of at a right angle now.
Yeah, I can see it with your fingers. You almost got a Vulcan salute there.
Right. And we're Tuesday, and the game was Sunday, and it's still that way. I still have my moments. I've gotten a lot better because obviously when I cover games in the press box, you're not allowed to scream, swear, or punch things. Although in Pittsburgh last year, I threw a pen that drew some eyebrows. I've made progress, but I still got work to do.
Whew. Yeah. I hear you. Well, we'll savage Pete Carmichael next week because I'm giving Carmichael another week. I think the offensive line is really more of a problem than even Carmichael, although that last sequence before the field goal attempt still boggles my mind. Why are you throwing the ball on second down? I get it. You need another first down, but they got 3 timeouts. They got to use the timeouts. I would much rather run the ball 3 times, get it centered so he can kick the field goal. Now, I'm not blaming Groupie at all. I know a lot of people are like, Lutz would have made that kick. No, he wouldn't have.
Not the way that day went, no.
No. Because even if he makes that kick, I'm thinking they're going to get down the field and kick a field goal to end the game on the last play of the game. Because we didn't make them use their timeouts.
Yep.
So, you make them use their timeouts, you have a better shot of keeping them out. So, I'm holding judgment for one more week on Carmichael. We'll see what. Oh, yes, they really did cut TreQuan. Bob was celebrating earlier. Let's wait one more week before. People are already talking about bringing in John Gruden to save this offense. So we'll talk about that next week. Catch the Bayou Blitz Thursday night. Catch the other show Friday night on the PS what app?
PSF app. Pro Sports Fans.
Pro Sports Fans app. In the meantime, Bob, I promised I'd get you out of here earlier. I still kept you 19 minutes because I had to talk about that jacket. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. Bob, I hope you feel better. Good
Thank
luck
you.
on your shows tomorrow night, and Thursday night and Friday night. And we'll see you next time under the dome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.